Joni Lamb's quick remarriage to Dr. Doug Weiss after the passing of her husband Marcus Lamb in November 2021 sparked considerable controversy within the Christian community, particularly among those involved with the Daystar Television Network, which Marcus Lamb had co-founded. The rapid nature of this new relationship raised eyebrows, as many believed that Joni's actions were inconsistent with the grieving period typically expected after such a loss. Marcus Lamb, the founder of Daystar, had passed away from complications related to COVID-19, and his death was deeply felt by his family, the ministry, and the millions of followers who had supported him throughout his life. Joni, as his widow, was expected to navigate a period of mourning, yet only months later, in May 2022, she began a relationship with Dr. Doug Weiss, a psychologist who had previously counseled the Lamb family. This relationship quickly escalated from friendship to dating by July 2022, and by June 2023, they were married. This swift progression left many wondering if the grieving process had truly been given enough time and attention, especially considering Joni's prominent role in the ministry and her responsibility to her children and congregation. The timing of Joni's remarriage, coupled with the controversial nature of her relationship with Doug Weiss, raised concerns among her family members, including her son, Jonathan Lamb, who expressed his distress in a heartfelt letter to his mother. Many in the Christian community believed that Joni's actions were inappropriately hasty and lacked discernment, potentially undermining the values that Marcus Lamb had built within the Daystar ministry. Articles such as this one have detailed the growing criticism of Joni's remarriage, with some questioning whether her decisions were being guided by personal desires rather than spiritual discernment. While Joni defended her actions, stating that she was following God's will, critics argued that her rapid remarriage was both a spiritual misstep and an emotional risk, especially in the wake of such a significant loss. The concerns raised by Joni Lamb's family regarding her quick remarriage to Dr. Doug Weiss were deeply emotional and reflect the struggles many families face when navigating significant life changes, especially within the context of faith and public life. The most notable expression of these concerns came from Joni's children, particularly her son Jonathan Lamb. In a heartfelt letter, Jonathan voiced his hurt and disappointment over his mother's rapid decision to marry so soon after the death of his father, Marcus Lamb. Jonathan's concerns were not just about the timing of the remarriage, but also about the impact it would have on the family dynamic and the ministry that Marcus had built. In his letter, he expressed how he and his wife Susie felt disregarded and unimportant in the face of Joni's new relationship. Jonathan feared that his mother's actions were undermining the memory of Marcus Lamb and the values they had built together within the Daystar ministry. Earlier he'd mentioned that there was danger of a corrupt Marcus Lamb in the ministry, and unseen he revealed that he had tried to express his concerns, only to be met with resistance and a threat of being removed from family responsibilities. His words illustrated the deep emotional rift that the family was experiencing, with some members feeling neglected and even betrayed by Joni's actions. Criticism also came from within the Christian community, as many saw Joni's marriage to Doug Weiss as too soon and ill-timed. Joni's children, particularly Jonathan and Susie, expressed concern that their mother was prioritizing her new relationship over her responsibilities as a mother and a leader within Daystar. End screen. The controversy intensified with letters from other concerned Christians, including Pastor Valerie Hartwell, who argued that Joni was rushing into the relationship without properly grieving Marcus's death. According to Hartwell, the swift nature of the remarriage suggested a lack of spiritual discernment and emotional preparation, which caused significant distress among Joni's children. Joni's remarriage was also seen as potentially damaging to the Daystar network, as many believed it could shift the ministry's focus from the teachings of Marcus Lamb to personal desires. The swift decision to marry Doug Weiss after only months of dating raised further questions about the integrity of Joni's leadership and her commitment to the ministry that had been so central to her late husband's legacy. The pastoral criticism of Joni Lamb's remarriage to Dr. Doug Weiss was particularly intense and focused on the perceived lack of spiritual discernment and the rapid pace at which the relationship developed. Several prominent Christian leaders, including Pastor Valerie Hartwell, voiced their concerns about the moral and spiritual implications of Joni's actions. Hartwell, who had been a close confidant and fellow widow, expressed her disappointment in a series of letters that highlighted the hasty nature of Joni's remarriage. Hartwell's main criticism centered around the timing and the emotional readiness of Joni, especially given the deep grief she had experienced after the death of her husband, Marcus Lamb. In her letter, Hartwell argued that Joni's remarriage was not only too soon, but also potentially harmful to her spiritual life. She pointed out that Joni had not allowed enough time to properly grieve the loss of Marcus, which, in Hartwell's view, was essential before entering into another serious relationship. Hartwell's concern was rooted in the belief that the Bible calls for a period of mourning after the death of a spouse, and she feared that Joni's rapid remarriage was a sign of emotional instability and poor judgment. Pastoral criticism also came from other members of the Christian community who feared the potential impact on Daystar's ministry. Many believed that Joni's decision was damaging not only to her personal reputation, but to the broader mission of the ministry that she and Marcus had built together. These critics felt that by marrying Doug Weiss so quickly, Joni was jeopardizing the credibility of Daystar and betraying the trust of those who had supported the ministry over the years. Additionally, there was criticism of the way in which Doug Weiss was introduced into the Daystar family. Critics raised concerns about his past, with some questioning whether his personal history, including his past marriage and his role as a marriage counselor, was being overlooked in the rush to embrace him as Joni's new partner. Many believed that Joni, as a leader within the Christian community, should have exercised more caution and discernment in her choice of a spouse, especially given her public role and influence within the ministry. The remarriage of Joni Lamb to Dr. Doug Weiss sparked a series of spiritual warnings from various Christian leaders and pastors, reflecting deep concerns about the impact on her spiritual well-being and the future of Daystar ministry. These warnings were not just personal, but also public, with influential voices in the Christian community raising alarms about the speed at which Joni entered into this new relationship following the death of her husband, Marcus Lamb. One of the most vocal critics was Pastor Valerie Hartwell, who had known Joni for years and shared a similar experience of widowhood. In a heartfelt letter, Hartwell expressed her spiritual concern over Joni's decision to marry Doug Weiss so soon after Marcus's death. She warned that the timing of the marriage suggested emotional instability and a lack of proper mourning. From a biblical perspective, Hartwell emphasized that a widow or widower should ideally wait before entering another relationship, giving themselves the necessary time to grieve and seek spiritual healing. Hartwell's warning was framed as a plea for Joni to prioritize her relationship with God and her family over the emotional urgency of finding a new partner. The speed of Joni's remarriage led to further spiritual concerns from other Christian leaders, who feared that she was being influenced by a spirit of deception. Some ministers believed that Joni's desire to find companionship quickly after Marcus's passing might have clouded her judgment, making her susceptible to spiritual influences that were not in line with her Christian values. Denise Bogg, a close advisor to the Lamb family, also voiced her fears, suggesting that Joni was being led astray by a spirit of doubt, and that her decision to marry Doug Weiss was spiritually dangerous. She warned that Doug's influence, as a counselor with a controversial background, could further derail Joni's spiritual path. Joni was 72. Pastoral warnings didn't stop at personal concerns. They extended to the broader impact on Daystar ministry. Several leaders within the ministry expressed their fear that Joni's remarriage, especially given the lack of spiritual discernment, would cause the ministry to lose credibility. They pointed to the fact that Marcus Lamb had built Daystar on the foundation of strong Christian values and a commitment to truth. "You are asleep." Critics argued that Joni's actions, in their view, compromised the very foundation of the ministry, potentially leading viewers to question the integrity of the network. Pastoral warnings also highlighted concerns about Doug Weiss's role in the remarriage. Many questioned whether Joni, in her grief, was allowing her emotional needs to dictate her decisions, rather than seeking spiritual counsel and wisdom. As a marriage counselor with a complex past, Doug was seen as a potentially controversial figure. His previous relationships and the timing of his divorce raised questions about whether he was the right person to guide Joni through such an emotionally charged period. 3. In addition to the voices of pastors and Christian leaders, there were warnings from the wider Christian community. Some believers took to social media and Christian forums to express their unease, questioning whether Joni's remarriage was in accordance with biblical principles of mourning, discernment, and wise decision-making. These concerns were further amplified by articles in Christian publications such as Christian News and the Christian Post. which explored the spiritual implications of Joni's actions and raised the question of whether the hasty remarriage could lead to spiritual harm. For many, the spiritual warnings surrounding Joni's remarriage were a call for greater caution in the face of deep personal loss. While some believed that Joni was entitled to find happiness again, others urged her to take the time to heal spiritually, focusing on her relationship with God, her children, and her family, before making such a significant life decision. The debate, though contentious, served as a reminder of the importance of spiritual discernment in moments of emotional vulnerability, particularly for those in positions of leadership within the Christian community. As Joni Lamb's remarriage continues to be scrutinized, the spiritual warnings from her peers and advisors underscore the ongoing tension between personal desire, spiritual health, and the responsibilities that come with leadership in the Christian faith. They finally ask, who's the king now? The remarriage of Joni Lamb to Dr. Doug Weiss in 2023 has had significant repercussions on Daystar Television Network, a global Christian broadcast network founded by Joni and her late husband, Marcus Lamb. While the network's mission was to spread the gospel and provide a platform for Christian programming, the controversial remarriage has raised questions about its future direction and leadership. Several factors have contributed to concerns about how Joni's decision may affect Daystar's public image, internal dynamics, and long-term sustainability. First and foremost, the speed at which Joni remarried after Marcus's death has generated criticism from within the Daystar community itself. Daystar staff, supporters, and viewers have expressed their discomfort with the timeline of her relationship with Doug Weiss. The rapid transition from widowhood to remarriage, especially within the year following Marcus's death, has led some to question Joni's emotional and spiritual readiness to continue her leadership role at Daystar. Some critics have argued that this hasty remarriage undermines the credibility of the network, which was built on principles of stability, strong family values, and spiritual integrity. A key concern for many within the Daystar family is the perception that Joni's personal life choices are influencing her professional decisions. The network's mission has been intertwined with Marcus's leadership, and for years he was the face of Daystar. His sudden passing in 2021 left a void, and while Joni assumed the role of Daystar's president, the speed with which she remarried raised concerns about her emotional state and her ability to navigate the responsibilities of leading such a high-profile life ministry. Critics feared that her personal life might now overshadow the network's spiritual and evangelical focus. In addition, the involvement of Doug Weiss, a controversial figure in the Christian counseling community, has intensified concerns. Doug's background, including a recent divorce, and his work as a marriage therapist, has made him a divisive figure among Daystar supporters. Some critics argue that his influence on Joni, particularly in the context of her remarriage, could lead Daystar in a direction that is at odds with its original Christian values. The merger of personal and professional lives has led to accusations that Daystar is now being guided by secular relationships rather than a commitment to faith and biblical teachings. Moreover, the tension within the Lamb family itself has added fuel to the fire. Joni's children, particularly her son Jonathan Lamb, have publicly expressed their concerns about their mother's remarriage. Jonathan's letter, which he shared with the public, revealed his deep emotional pain over the situation, with concerns about how the decision would affect the family and Daystar's ministry. Jonathan and his sister Susie both felt that their mother's actions were disregarding the emotional needs of her children and grandchildren, as well as the spiritual welfare of the ministry. This familial conflict has caused a public rift, which in turn has damaged the image of unity that Daystar had cultivated under Marcus Lamb's leadership. The backlash from pastors and Christian leaders has further complicated the situation for Daystar. Several high-profile pastors, including Pastor Valerie Hartwell, have publicly criticized Joni's remarriage, questioning whether it aligns with biblical teachings on widowhood and spiritual discernment. Their concerns about the timing and emotional health of the decision, as well as Doug Weiss's controversial role, have cast a shadow over Daystar's future direction. Some have even suggested that the network's credibility could be compromised if Joni continues to pursue a personal agenda that seems disconnected from the spiritual mission of the ministry. From a broader perspective, the controversy surrounding Joni's remarriage has also sparked a wider conversation within the Christian community about the role of leaders in the church and the importance of personal accountability. Daystar, being one of the most influential Christian networks worldwide, has been forced to confront the issue of leadership succession in a public and often uncomfortable manner. Many have questioned whether Joni is the right person to lead the network forward, given the challenges she is facing, both personally and spiritually. Her decisions are now being scrutinized, not only for their personal implications, but also for their effect on the future of Daystar. In terms of viewership, there are concerns that the drama surrounding Joni's remarriage could result in a decline in audience trust. Daystar's success has been built on its ability to inspire and connect with millions of viewers around the world. However, with growing tensions and public disagreements about Joni's leadership, there is a risk that Daystar's audience could feel alienated or disillusioned. Some former supporters have expressed doubts about the integrity of the ministry, questioning whether Daystar is still aligned with the values that made it a beacon of Christian broadcasting. Finally, Daystar's financial stability may also be at risk. As a non-profit organization, the network relies on donations and support from viewers, many of whom are concerned about the direction in which Joni is taking the ministry. A drop in viewership or a loss of trust among donors could have long-term financial implications, which would affect the network's ability to fund its programming and global outreach efforts. In conclusion, the impact of Joni Lamb's remarriage on Daystar Television Network is multifaceted, with emotional, spiritual, familial, and financial consequences. While some have expressed unwavering support for Joni, others are concerned about how her personal life is affecting the legacy of Daystar and its future role in the Christian broadcasting community. The ongoing controversy underscores the challenges that come with leadership transitions, especially within highly visible ministries, and serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between personal life and public responsibility in Christian ministry. Joni Lamb's remarriage to Dr. Doug Weiss has sparked significant moral and spiritual debates, both within the Christian community and beyond. The implications of her decision go beyond personal choices, raising questions about faith, leadership, and biblical principles in a public ministry setting. Her actions have been met with criticism from several quarters, highlighting concerns about the moral integrity of the decisions and their alignment with Christian teachings. One of the primary moral concerns raised by critics is the timing of the remarriage. Joni's marriage to Doug Weiss, which occurred within a short period after the death of her husband Marcus Lamb, has been viewed by many as morally questionable. The rapid transition from widowhood to remarriage has led to accusations that Joni did not fully grieve the loss of her spouse before moving into a new relationship. According to some Christian ethicists, the Bible emphasizes the importance of mourning and healing after the death of a spouse before entering into a new relationship. Critics argue that Joni's swift remarriage may be seen as ignoring these spiritual and emotional processes. The involvement of Dr. Doug Weiss, a man who has faced his own controversial issues, including a recent divorce and his background in marriage counseling, has added another layer of complexity to the moral debate. Many have questioned whether his relationship with Joni is based on genuine spiritual and emotional growth, or whether it is simply the result of personal convenience. Dr. Weiss's public statements on marriage and sexuality, which some find too provocative or unbiblical, have caused concern among Daystar viewers and leaders alike. His influence over Joni's decisions, especially within a ministry like Daystar, has led to accusations of a potentially unhealthy and morally questionable relationship dynamic. Spiritually, the implications of Joni's remarriage go beyond the ethical concerns of timing and character. Many within the Christian community have expressed fears that her actions could lead others to question the sanctity of marriage and widowhood in Christian doctrine. Joni's high-profile position as the president of Daystar, a global Christian network, means her personal decisions have the potential to influence a wide audience. Some theologians have warned that her actions could normalize hasty remarriage and challenge traditional Christian views on mourning, healing, and the sanctity of marriage vows. Furthermore, the spiritual impact on Joni's family has been a significant concern. Her children, particularly her son Jonathan Lamb, have publicly expressed their pain and disappointment over the remarriage. In a heartfelt letter, Jonathan voiced concerns about the emotional and spiritual toll the marriage was taking on their family. His words reflect a deep sense of betrayal, not only on a personal level, but also in terms of the integrity of the family's faith journey. The conflict within the Lamb family has led many to question whether Joni's spiritual health is being compromised by her actions. Some have raised the issue of whether her remarriage is a sign of spiritual immaturity or a lack of discernment, suggesting that a more cautious approach might have been more aligned with biblical teachings. Additionally, many pastors and Christian leaders have spoken out against Joni's remarriage, citing the potential spiritual harm it could cause within the broader Daystar community. Pastor Valerie Hartwell, for example, expressed her deep concern in an open letter to Joni, stating that her actions could lead people to question the spiritual integrity of Daystar. According to Lisbeth, every Daystar member received a mail code. These pastors argue that the speed of Joni's remarriage undermines the message of patience, healing, and spiritual growth that the Christian faith encourages. They also warn that Joni's decision to prioritize her personal desires over the spiritual needs of her family and ministry could lead to long-term negative consequences for Daystar's credibility and the spiritual well-being of its followers. The broader moral and spiritual implications of Joni's remarriage also touch upon the concept of leadership within the Christian community. Many argue that a leader's personal life should reflect the values and teachings they promote. For Joni, a prominent Christian leader, her actions are under intense scrutiny. Some critics have suggested that by rushing into a relationship with Weiss, she is setting a poor example for her followers and the broader Christian community. This has led to questions about whether the integrity of Daystar's leadership is compromised, especially in light of the accusations that her decision reflects a disregard for spiritual discernment. The ethical and spiritual concerns surrounding Joni Lamb's remarriage also extend to the messages she conveys to her audience. As a leader of a major Christian network, her personal choices are amplified, influencing not only her family and close associates, but also millions of viewers around the world. Some have expressed concern that the rapid remarriage could inadvertently send the wrong message about marriage and faith to a vulnerable audience. Critics argue that the actions of influential figures like Joni Lamb can shape public perception of Christian teachings, potentially leading followers to make hasty or spiritually unhealthy decisions in their own lives. In conclusion, the moral and spiritual implications of Joni Lamb's remarriage are complex and multifaceted. While some supporters have defended her decision, arguing that it is her personal life and she has the right to move forward, many others see it as a spiritually and morally troubling decision. And share this perspective at my blog, www.lamlam.com. The speed and nature of the remarriage, the involvement of Weiss, and the impact on Joni's family and the broader Daystar community have raised serious questions about her spiritual health and leadership. As a public figure and leader of Daystar, her actions continue to have wide-reaching implications for the Christian community, both in terms of personal conduct and spiritual guidance.